Welcome to Nutmeg Chatter. The views expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the station or its sponsors.
Welcome to Nutmeg Chatter. I'm Phil Hall. On today's show, we're going to be talking about mentors. Our guest is Amy Summers. She is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and the author of the new book, Lift: 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Welcome to Nutmeg Chatter. I'm Phil Hall. On today's show, we're going to be talking about mentorship. And we have a guest who knows something about the subject. Her name is Amy Summers. She's an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and the author of a new book called Lift: 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Amy, thank you for joining us on today's Nutmeg Chatter.
Thank you for having me.
Amy, so we're both on the same page. How do you define mentor?
Well, I think a mentor is somebody that you develop a relationship with that helps guide you, that gives you access and helps support you in life and in your career.
Where do you find mentors? Do you go into say you start a new job? How do you know which person at this company you just started with could be a mentor for you?
Well, I think the best thing to do is to always be looking for mentors. And I think a lot of times we're not really recognizing mentorship, but what you want to be on the lookout for is um, how is someone leading, and is that the type of leader you want to be? So if you see somebody in a position and you say to yourself, I want to be like that person, that could be a good mentor. So that's a good place to start. And that could happen at any stage of your career. And we should always be looking for mentors and ways to level up. So look around and see who's successful and who's got a style that is appealing to you. And that would be a good mentor.
Now you say at any stage of your career, I could understand when somebody who's just starting in the workforce would benefit from a mentor, but how would somebody who's in middle or senior management benefit from having a mentor?
Oh, I think we all benefit from having mentors along the way. And the more senior we get in our careers, this is where we run into trouble of not looking for mentorship. And we should be, because we should always be learning and growing. And I think that you can be mentored from people that have more experience than you. But I also believe that you can be mentored with people that have less experience than you. So the mentorship happens up and down. I get mentored from my mentees all the time. I'm always learning about what's new in their world and how to do things differently. So I think that that's one of the cautions for leaders as they get more senior in their career, that they don't forget that they can still continue to learn.
In your new book, Lift, you outline 10 mentorship touch points. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to list all 10 of them. We'll be here into the next show. But which one or two of them do you believe is the most misunderstood and why?
Well, I think that one of the ones that I touch on in the book is one of the last ones. And I think it's one that we don't talk about that much, and it's supporting healthy exits. And so when it is time to move on from a position or a company, even, and or maybe the relationship at a job is just not working out, I think that this is the moment where we should really show up. And a lot of times what happens is that companies and leaders get really mechanical at this point when somebody's departing. And I think that the relationship, whatever you had, even if it was a good mentorship relationship, is at risk. So I really like supporting healthy exits and really helping people rise, even if even if it's time for them to move on from your leadership and move on to someone else's, and be comfortable as a leader doing that and not being worried about you're not going to be able to find somebody else to replace them. You should always be of the mindset of, I can develop new talent anytime. And if someone has outgrown this position, then I need to give them the opportunity to rise up. And then I can always rise up a new person in this position.
In your book, you argue that mentorship should be embedded into the company's culture, not treated as an add-on. What does that look like in practice? And in what way should somebody who's acting as a mentor act like a mentor as opposed to playing favorites with one or two people within the company?
So I really advocate that that leaders just make mentorship part of their leadership lifestyle. And so what I mean by that is that they get in the habit of adding in small mentorship moments throughout their day. We have made mentorship into this intimidating thing, like a program, or you have to go meet with your mentor. And to me, it's not that intimidating. It's not a program. It's not a title. It's just a relationship at its core. And so, if it's just a relationship, then that means as you're managing people or as you're leading people, you should be thinking of ways to bring in the human touch whenever possible. And that's especially critical today because we have a lot of technology interfering with us interacting with each other. It's actually keeping us from interacting with each other. And so that human touch is really important. It lets the person that you're working with know that they're cared about, that you can see things from their perspective. And I think a lot of creativity and important innovation comes from human connection. And we're starting to be a little bit devoid of that. And it's really important to make sure that we weave it back in.
If you're just joining our broadcast, our guest on today's show is Amy Summers. She's talking about her new book, Lift 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Uh, Amy, is it possible that some managers just are not meant to be mentors? I'm saying from my own experience, I've worked in companies where senior management could charitably be described as deranged. So, um, what happens when somebody is looking for a mentor and they find somebody who really is not the mentor they should be having?
Well, I think that that's an important point that you're making. I mean, not every leader has an empathy chip. Not every leader is, going to help you along. I think recognizing that and evaluating, am I in the right position? And I always tell, especially young professionals coming up when they're applying for jobs, they're very much in the interview process. They should be interviewing the company too and who they're going to be working for. They should make decisions more so about who they're working with than what company they're working for. And that's really important because if you get under the wrong leadership, in the long run, it can really hold you back. So sometimes it's more important to work with a leader that's going to help you and give you access and help you grow, even if the pay is not where you want it, versus working for somebody that might offer a lucrative salary, but they're going to maybe hold you back for the next 10 to 15 years. And that could, be damaging to your career in the long run.
I want to just circle back for a minute about healthy exits. I've been reading a lot lately about how people are now uh, not eager to be leaving their jobs because of the shakiness in the economy. Uh, but what happens if a person is in a job that's doing a serious impact on their mental health or even their physical health? How do they break it to their mentor within the company that they have to get out because this is literally killing them?
Well, I believe that your health is the most important thing that you have. And so if you are in a situation where you're in an environment where it's detrimental to your health, you need to communicate that to the person leading you and let them know, look, this situation is not very healthy for me. This is how I'm feeling. I think that I could work better if I was in this environment, maybe suggest working remotely, if the office environment is, too tense or stressful, or offer some other options and see what they think. But I think it's very important that we don't just leave jobs, that we do have that talk with managers because even if you do end up leaving, maybe they'll learn something from you and change the environment there. But I think it's very important. Some people call it, they don't like to be confrontational, but I think it's important to point out to managers, bosses, and leaders when something doesn't feel right. And it takes a real bold person to do that, but things do not change if they're not pointed out to us. And so a good leader would take that feedback and try to start making changes to make it a healthier environment.
Now, you just mentioned remote work. How does mentorship work when so many people are working remotely today? Is mentorship something which is better in a one-on-one person-to-person environment, or can it exist over direct messages and Zoom?
Well, in remote and hybrid environments, mentorship is a lot more challenging. So I address that heavily in my book, having been an entrepreneur and having remote teams for 2 decades now. I can tell you it's not easy to do. You have to be very, very intentional because you are separated by screens all the time. And in an office environment, what happens is something I call mentorship by osmosis, because you don't really have to try that hard. You're just in an environment with a bunch of people and they're going to pick up on things without you even having to be intentional about it. But that's not the case when you are working remote or hybrid. And a lot of people are these days. So that's why leaders need to step up. They need to know that they have to make an impromptu phone call. They have to do something that's not scheduled, because that's what would happen in an office environment. You'd be walking down the hall and you'd pop into someone's office and it would be totally unexpected. And that's very important for not only skill building, but just relationship building.
What happens if a mentorship relationship is misconstrued? I'm thinking about a company where I used to work. There was an older man and an attractive younger woman who worked for him, and they would go out for lunch together for extended periods, and it created gossip, which was obviously unsubstantiated, but it didn't make them look very good. How do you address a situation like that?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because actually, touchpoint 8 in my book is addressing taboo topics. So I like getting into these topics because I don't think that we address them enough. And not knowing the full situation with your example here, but one thing to keep in mind is that whether you call yourself a mentor or not, or whether you think that you are or not, you're always being watched. And if you're in a leadership role, you're being watched. And so you really have to consider what signals you're sending to your team. If something does look inappropriate, and maybe you're not doing anything inappropriate, you still have to address that. So it's very important to address these topics head on with your team. And if you're receiving feedback that something just is not right, or you're being gossiped about, then that needs to be addressed. And as a leader, you have to lead the way. You have to demonstrate what you want the rest of your team to do and how you want them to behave, whether that's at conferences or with client interactions. I once had a young professional that used to work for me say that at her job, their client just totally talked down to her in front of her boss, and her boss didn't do anything about it. She just remained silent. But that's not okay. The boss should have spoken up and said something to the client. So you have to be aware that however you're leading, your people are going to mimic and repeat what you're doing. So just like a parent with a child, you have to demonstrate good behavior and know that you're always being watched.
If you're just joining the broadcast, our guest is Amy Summers. She's the author of the new book, Lift, 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Well, Amy, we've been talking about a lot of hypothetical situations. Can you share examples from your career where you've been a mentor and where you have been the subject of mentorship?
Absolutely. So I run a PR agency and I have been running an internship mentorship program for nearly 2 decades now. So fun little fact that you'll find about in my book is that my entire company is run by me and college interns. And so that's part of the reason what prompted me to write the book was because for many, many years, I didn't tell clients I only had college students working for me because I was afraid that they would not give me the work to do. But what I've learned from this experience and from mentoring each of these students one-on-one and giving them large responsibilities, make or break responsibilities that they've really rised above. And so that's the whole point in the book, is that I believe that when you spend the time and invest in somebody and really develop their talent, they can do amazing things no matter what age they are or even what education level they are. And that's just the power of mentorship. And so I'm a big advocate of it because I do it every day.
And for yourself as being a mentor, who were the mentors in your life?
Well, I've had several, and if you would have asked me this question many years ago, I would have told you I didn't have a mentor, which is another reason why I wrote the book, because I want people to be aware that mentorship is always around us, and it's not this romanticized relationship where you're off to coffee with somebody all the time. You have these long-term relationships. Some people are fortunate and they do. Others of us, like myself, pick up mentorship in moments from professionals that maybe opened doors for us or helped us along the way. One mentor that comes to mind for me is that when I was first starting out in my business, at just the age of 27, he was opening doors for me and helping me get clients and advocating for me in the very beginning. And because of him, Anthony Zalesi is his name, I was able to really get a good start with my business because he had a lot of faith and trust in me, and because he did, other CEOs did as well. And so that simple act of opening some doors for me and showing faith in me really helped launch me and launch my business.
Are you aware of examples of mentorship where the mentor is significantly younger than the person being mentored?
Yes, I think that that can happen frequently. It's certainly happened to me many times. You know, sometimes I've been the younger one mentoring someone older than me, and like I've said, mentioned previously, I've even had some of my mentees mentor me on new things, and that have been very helpful in me keeping up with technology and other, trends that are happening, and even just learning about their perspective and helping me change my leadership style, even to understand what their perspective on the world is, and what makes a good leader to them. Because I think it's always evolving, right? So I think that you can be mentored at any stage and at any age.
Our guest on today's show is Amy Summers. She is the author of the new book, Lift: 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Um, Amy, if a leader wanted to implement your mentorship framework into their organization, how do they begin?
Well, I think the starting point is to just start adding in habitual habits of human touch into your leadership. So, for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different. But for example, I mentioned earlier in our conversation about the value of impromptu phone calls, which we don't do so much anymore, but that is very important. So, if I am walking my dog, for example, and I'm running a remote team, I will make a bunch of phone calls on that dog walk just to check in with people and see how they're doing. And I can tell you that that time is very valuable. I've solved problems I didn't know we had problems with. I've brainstormed with team members, and we've come up with really good ideas that helped us bring a lot of success to our clients. So for me, that's one way I made it a habit. So I just think that whenever you are thinking about, you know, bettering your health, or, eating better or exercising, these are all habits in our lifestyle too that we have to just practice and strengthen. And so it's the same thing with relationship. We have to practice and strengthen our verbal communication and also our relationship skills.
In writing this book, what was the most surprising thing that you discovered about the subject of mentorship and perhaps about yourself?
Well, I'm at awe about how many people really crave mentorship, but they don't call it mentorship. So, in the process of writing this book, I was doing a lot of research through my own podcasts and asking anybody that I ever interviewed who's your mentor? And what was interesting to me is that some people could name it right away, and other people just said that they didn't have one. But then later in the conversation, they would name three or four people that had mentored them. So I think people get stuck on the word mentor. And so I really encourage people to look around. I think we're being mentored all the time. Sometimes we're being mentored in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way, but all of those ways can help us shape and form our leadership and help us inform the type of leader that we want to be.
What kind of reaction have you gotten to the book since it's come out?
I've gotten a really good reaction. I really wrote Lift for millennial and Gen Z age group, those leaders coming up. But I'm very pleasantly surprised that leaders from all ages and stages have been writing me and saying that it really resonates with them. Some people have said that the touch points I mentioned in the book are things that they have done in the past, or they used to do, or they sometimes do. But what I've reminded them to do through the book is to make them more of a habit and to integrate them more into their daily routine. And that really makes me excited because one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because I just feel like uh, we need more examples of really good leadership, but we just need to make it more of our daily um, lifestyle of leadership so that we model it more. And the more we model it, the more people will also replicate it. And that will create healthier work environments and just bring more kindness to the workspace, which is something I think that we really need.
Are you working on any additional books?
Not right now, because this book was a lot. So I'm very happy with the book. And I'm sure that my future, there will be more books for sure. What I found out about myself in this process is that I really enjoy writing, and writing a book is far different than writing an article, which I do frequently. But it was very enjoyable to bring it all together and into this manuscript lift, and it's very rewarding. And I'm sure that I will do it again one day, but I'm going to just enjoy the ride with Lyft for now and get people's feedback on it before I venture out on the next subject matter.
Now, you mentioned that your public relations agency, you work with a lot of college students as interns. Um, for people listening who are running businesses or managing within an organization, what's the best advice you can give to hire the best possible intern?
Touch point number one, show up. Show up in the interview process. I think that we allow technology now to handle the vetting process in interviews. And this is where a lot of college students are really struggling right now because they are being vetted by AI and they're not being vetted by a person. And I would encourage leaders to just show up in that interview process, see who's sitting in front of them, because you might be missing some very important talent if you're just relying on paper and automation to bring you the best person. I think you can learn a lot about a person just within the first few seconds of being face to face with them. And I think that that's really important.
And can I ask how many college students you have working for you?
Currently six. I have a pretty small business. I like to keep it that way, and that's about all I can manage at once. So that's a good size for me. But over the course of my career, I've launched more than 50. I think it's up to like 60 careers now. So I have worked with many college students over my 20 plus years in business and launched many successful careers, and I've kept up with all of them. I write about a lot of these stories in my book, Lift, and they have the leadership lessons woven into them. So they're really my case studies of what happens when you give somebody a start at the beginning and really invest in them and help them grow. And it's been the highlight of my career.
Our guest on today's show has been Amy Summers. She's an entrepreneur, a speaker. She runs a public relations agency, and she's the author of a new book called Lift, 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to empower your team and accelerate your career. And from what I understand, it's now on Amazon and it has already hit the #1 spot on Amazon's hot new releases in work-life balance in business. So congratulations on that. And Amy, thank you for joining us on today's Nutmeg Chatter.
Thank you so much for having me.
And folks, if you want to listen to this interview again, or if you missed any part of it, and want to have the full interview, go over to nutmegchatter.com. This episode is archived in its entirety. Not only this episode, but the 380 or so that came before it, going all the way back to the beginning when J. Timothy Quirk was the original host. He's still with us, but he's off microphone as our producer, so shout out to J. Timothy. I'm going to be back next week, and if you're wondering who's going to be on our show, so am I. We haven't booked it yet. Maybe I have to get some of your interns, Amy, because
That'd be a great follow-up, wouldn't it?
that'd be a great follow-up. Yes, I mean, I need
Yes.
a little disorganized around here, but you never know, you never know who's going to turn up on Nutmeg Chatter. So tune in next week, same time on this station, and you might be pleasantly surprised. I know I'll be, but until then, have yourself the most wonderful of experiences.
Thank you for listening to this program. If you've enjoyed this program, then you've enjoyed community radio. Community radio is nonprofit, non-commercial radio with a mission to share voices and stories not commonly heard on commercial venues. We are proud to have this program on your local community radio station. If you enjoy our audio theater adventures, please share that with your station. And if you have occasion, please support your local community radio station when they need support. Stay tuned for more quality programming.